Thanks, Daniel. So hopefully I can shine some light on this subject of data analytics, certainly to some of the people in the room, maybe not to the guy in the check shirt in the middle who's at the cutting edge of data analytics, but to some of you. Now, you'll notice that I've called this in the post-OTT age. Well, since we're on the quiz trend here, Daniel, you've just started. Let's start with a quiz. So, who can tell me how long it is since Netflix started streaming? 10 years? Any advance on 10? Good. It is 11 years. Who was first, Netflix or Amazon? No. Amazon was 6 months ahead of Netflix, interestingly. So how long was the first video uploaded to YouTube? How about that?
13 years.
Exactly right. We've got some smart people in the room. You always get smart people coming to an analytics session, right? So yes, 11 years, almost 13 years. So the online video challenges have been around for quite some time. So they've been disrupting things, they've been intensifying the competition, but they've also, I think, had a profound impact on what we think of as customer experience. So no disrespect to the Comcast people that have been speaking today, but we were starting from a low base in the pay TV industry as far as customer experience is concerned. And I think those online video challenges have helped us realize the importance of customer experience and brought us to something more like that. So customer experience has come to the fore for sure. So what I've been doing is a project to look at how analytics is being used to improve customer experience. And I've been doing a project that's been sponsored by a subscription management company called PayWizard. I've been doing a bunch of interviews with pay TV guys, with online video platforms, with broadcasters and channel groups. And this today are the first results from the European wave of that research that I've been doing to give you a little insight. So firstly, what do consumers say? Well, they say, and this was consumer research that PayWizard had done all around the world, that a quarter have cancelled a service because of a poor customer experience. So that's pretty important, and that explains why all of the people that I've been talking to ranked customer service way up in terms of the strategic importance. And this was the CEO of an SVOD company who says that it's number one and it's strategic because it's the only way to fight customer churn. So you can apply analytics in the subscription business all the way along the customer journey. From finding your customers in the first place, from all of that outreach, from the marketing that you do, trying to bring them in to your service, getting them to join, and then critically, that next block, the consuming of the content. Very important part of understanding, of engaging with the customer, making sure that they are using your service to the maximum. So a really important area for analytics. And then getting them to increase what they buy from you. Moving them up, potentially moving them down if they're not happy. Looking at the way that you're billing them. Is it accurate? Are you billing them for the right stuff? And if they want them to leave, work out, if they want to leave, work out how to get them back. Track the customers. Work out the best way to appeal to them based on all the other data points that you have, that you've understood from the analytics. So what I found in talking to European service providers is that there's a lot of variation in the way that they're deploying analytics across all these different points in the customer journey. So this is a kind of scorecard. The full marks are 8. If you get 8, then that is the highest score possible on this scorecard. So a lot of the service providers are using it for customer acquisition. Everyone has a pretty good understanding of what people are watching, thank God. Right? They know what each subscriber is viewing, when, etc. So that's a kind of base point. Not so many are using analytics for recommendation, and indeed at the conference today we've heard varying things about how good recommendation software is. Leading on from that, personalization, even less used so far, taking the content recommendations and providing a completely personalized user experience. Predicting churn, again, relatively weak, even using analytics to support accuracy of billing, very variable, and winning back those subscribers you've lost, relatively weak. So what about who, in terms of the different customer groups, are winning and losing in this? Well, the worst I found were the telcos. They are the laggards when it comes to deploying analytics for their video services. Interestingly, the online video platforms scored much better, but fascinatingly, the broadcasters who have online video are ticking pretty much all the boxes. So broadcasters even ahead of the standalone video guys at this point. Telcos, why have they got the most work to do? Well, I thought this quote from a leading telco TV executive was telling. For the senior management, it's not a priority. It's the poor cousin from the country they forgot about. You would think that telcos have the most power to bring. We hear a lot about bundling, about triple play, quad play. But the power of the bundle is clearly not being brought to the TV part of the business. Loads of analytics applied to mobile. Mobile gets loads of attention in telcos, but it's a siloed business. The data from one bit hardly ever makes it across. Having a 360-degree view of a customer just does not seem to happen yet in all of the telcos that I've talked to. So what are the best practices that are emerging from the research? And a lot of these conclusions kind of sound commonsensical, but they're important. What emerges? Identify the key business questions at the start of the process and look at them within the context of each part of the customer journey that I showed you before. So think about the questions and then iterate the questions as you go forward. Forget big data to start with. Start with small data. Start with small data before you move on to the big data. So you advance in modest steps. Take one step at a time. Often said, be flexible and agile. It's almost a cliche, but in the broadest general sense, it's so important. And there is this sort of ideal of the web culture approach of trying things fast, failing fast, and then moving on. But there is some real value to that approach, and it's a value and a culture that sometimes doesn't exist in the traditional TV business. So applying that approach in analytics is really important. And then lastly, you need a culture and a corporate culture and structure that will support this. Strong leadership buy-in is absolutely critical to making an analytics strategy work, but it isn't a magic bullet solution to anything, but it is very important. So thank you. Maybe time for a couple of questions if there are any.
Absolutely, yeah. Any questions to Ben?
Is there a
Please.
mic?
I've got a mic. Thanks. You said that telcos are doing the worst versus broadcasters and online video players. I'm from a telco, so you're going to see why I'm asking this question. But wouldn't you say it's a bit of an unfair judgment because we've got more to do, more challenges versus a broadcaster? So it's not quite apples with apples. And why do you think maybe we're not doing as well versus a broadcaster?
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. You have masses more to do, but you also have more resources to do it with, in general terms. Why should online video platforms be good at this? Because they're very focused and they only do one thing. It's, as you say, a lot easier. Broadcasters, to be fair, weren't built to do, this stuff either. So maybe they don't have as many different business lines to deal with, but actually, they've done it pretty well, at least the ones that I've spoken to. But it can't be. It's an organizational thing, I think, in telcos. It's a culture and an organizational thing. It should not be an excuse that there's the challenges are too big.
But Ben,
The culture's got to change.
isn't it also that the challenges are quite different? Telcos with the subscriber relationships, how I see it, they are, in theory at least, awash in data. So it's primarily a data combination and data activation question. Whereas for broadcasters, it's about moving from a data poor environment to a data rich environment in the first place. So the challenges and the starting point seem to be quite different for those two sets of players.
In theory, they're awash with data, but from what I can see and from the people I've spoken to, the reality is that the data is sitting in buckets that never get emptied and don't get connected.
Right.
There was another question.
On that precise point that you said, the data is sitting in different boxes, but is there another regulatory kind of issue when you try to get data from one boxes to the other? So for instance, if I try to use some of the data on mobile, on where people have used the mobile, etc., if they didn't use it to use my pay TV platform, I'm not a legal person, but am I on the clear regulatory ways to do that, for instance?
I suggest you ask that question to the lawyer coming later.
We're a legal expert in the room, so we park that question.
I'm not going to give a legal opinion on that, but it's
Open question then. And on that question that you asked about the pay TV, did you see a difference in a pay TV operator who are also telco but have like a strong dependency on their pay TV business. So I would distinguish like, a telco who traditionally is a cable TV business and they do broadband, and someone who's a broadband operator and just has a small kind of free TV or basic first tier pay TV. Did you see a difference in the way they were doing in analytics?
To be fair, all of the telcos I spoke to were at least triple play, big, multi-territory, or I think in all cases quad play companies. So I can't speak at this point to smaller, more focused ones.
One last quick question from this side of the room. Something? Anything? Ben, I've one last one for you. You mentioned kind of implicitly, but I think it's a very important point. You said you should ask the business questions first. Now, and I would just like to underscore the point business. Yeah. So that's very important for broadcasters. In the past, most data questions were framed as media questions. Yeah, in terms of how many people watch my stuff, what does that mean for my production, and so forth. But business questions, it's a very different angle, where you start not with reach, GRP, or all these types of media or even advertising or subscriber metrics, but what it all means for the business, which might be much broader or non-media focused questions. Is that right? Is that how you were using that term?
Yeah, for sure. And and those traditional media metrics, of course, are completely relevant to business questions and how you are achieving any value from the viewership numbers that you have traditionally looked at, and and how do you tweak those numbers up? How do you develop that engagement with your viewers at a deeper level? Yeah. And how do you find out how to get them coming back more and more and more?
Yeah. Well, Ben, thanks a lot for your insights. One more applause for Ben, please. And